AI models are getting ridiculously good. You have models for cinematic video, image generation, product ads, character creation, and everything in between. And every few weeks it feels like another model drops that everyone is suddenly talking about. The problem is, if you subscribe directly to every company or model you want to use, it gets expensive fast. Maybe you subscribe to Seedance, but then you also need an image generator, so you subscribe to GPT Image 2. Then a new model drops that is even better. That is why platforms like ImagineArt and HiggsField are so useful. They bring a range of models together under one subscription, then add their own tools and workflows on top. So instead of jumping between a bunch of different AI websites, you can create everything in one place. But ImagineArt and HiggsField have very different strengths. HiggsField is built more for serious filmmaking. ImagineArt is built more as an all-around AI creative platform. And after testing both extensively, I think one of them is the better choice for most people. And in this video, I will explain why. There are links to both tools down in the description. With the ImagineArt link, it gives you 10% off if you decide it is the right platform for you. ImagineArt is sponsoring this video, but I made sure I could be fully unbiased, so this video will tell you honestly which one is best. Let's get into it. So here's the short version. If you are focused on full-on filmmaking, intentional camera movements, cinematic shots, and directing AI video like a film project, HiggsField is probably the better choice. Although, fair warning, this is going to get expensive quickly. I will get into the exact pricing comparison later in the video, but just know that for one Seedance 2.0 clip, you can easily be paying multiple dollars. But if you are making ads, product content, social media content, marketing visuals, images, characters, simpler videos, or just want one platform where you can create almost anything with AI, then I think ImagineArt is the better option. And it's not like ImagineArt cannot handle longer projects at all. Its film studio comes close to the kind of workflow that makes HiggsField so good. But ImagineArt gives you much more flexibility outside of that specific filmmaking use case. Now, obviously on both platforms you can generate images, create AI videos, work with consistent characters and references, and use AI tools to bring ideas from a prompt to finished creative content using many of the top models out there. But there are some big differences in how they approach that workflow, and that difference starts with the experience of using the platforms. Now this part is subjective, but when you are paying for an AI platform that you will use every day, the interface matters. It affects how quickly you can test an idea, how easily you can find the right tool, and honestly whether you even want to use the platform at all. HiggsField has powerful features, but I personally find the UI a little messy. There is a lot happening, there are many tools and modes and options competing for your attention. Once you understand the platform, you can get excellent results, but it is not the experience I would recommend to someone new to AI creation. And judging by the reviews, I am not the only person who feels this way. ImagineArt feels cleaner and more approachable. The workflow is easier to understand. Just choose what you want to make, add your references or creative direction, adjust what you need and generate, without getting constant pop-ups and distractions. That may sound like a small thing, but when the platforms are this close in capability, ease of use becomes a real deciding factor. So if one platform helps you get to a stronger result faster, with less friction and less time spent figuring out where everything is, that is a real advantage. For beginners especially, I think ImagineArt is much easier to jump into. Then one feature I really like in ImagineArt is how it handles prompting. Normally with AI prompting you have to write everything manually. You have to explain the style, the mood, the colors, the product, the character, the camera direction, and then hope the model understands exactly what you mean. But in ImagineArt, when you type "add" in the prompt, you can reference different creative assets directly. You can reference pre-built styles like anime soft, noir cinematic, cyberpunk, dark academia, and more. You can reference your own brand kit, you can paste in a link to your website, and create a reusable system based on your colors, products, fonts, and styles. You can also reference a specific color palette, choose from characters you have already created, or create new characters for your project. You can reference elements too, so if you are making product ads, you can create your product as an element and reuse it instead of hoping the AI recreates it correctly every time. You can even add effects and camera angles, and the best part is that you can stack all of those together. For example, I can type "add," select dark academia, then type "add" again, select a palette like terracotta sun, then I can type "add" again and then add my character and add my product. Then I just click create, and that gives the AI a clear creative direction without me having to write a huge complicated prompt every time. Now on top of the references, you can still write your normal prompt for giving more direction to the final result. So for ads, branding and repeatable social content, this is incredibly useful. You can build a visual system once with your colors, products, characters, fonts and styles, and then reuse that system across multiple generations. And that is a big deal if you are creating content consistently rather than making one-off images or videos. HiggsField has strong filmmaking workflow tools, but I have not found an equivalent workflow that lets you combine all of these prompt references this easily in one place. For me, this is one of the strongest features that sets ImagineArt apart from HiggsField. And if you have a process that you keep repeating, workflow lets you chain these steps together so that you can just automatically run it again instead of rebuilding it all the time. For images, ads and general creative work, this is where I think ImagineArt makes the most sense for the majority of people. If you are making product ads, social posts, campaign visuals, lifestyle images, thumbnails or concepts before turning them into video, you need a platform that lets you move quickly. You do not just want one good generation. You want to test multiple hooks, different product angles, different backgrounds, different color palettes and different creative styles, without needing a film production workflow for every idea. ImagineArt allows you to do exactly that. You can take an idea, combine it with your brand assets and references, generate visuals, turn those visuals into video and keep iterating from there. For an ad creator, the goal is usually not to make one perfect cinematic clip. The goal is to create a lot of strong creative variations, test different angles and find what works, then produce more of it. And ImagineArt's Ad Studio makes that process much easier. Instead of restarting from zero every time, you can reuse the same product, character, palette, brand kit and style. That gives you a much better foundation for keeping your content visually consistent. Then there's also Fashion Studio, which handles apparel and on-model shoots. So if you have a clothing brand, this alone makes ImagineArt a very good platform for you. HiggsField can absolutely create strong images and videos, but for marketing, content, ads and broad creative work, I personally would rather have ImagineArt's more flexible and easier to use workflow. Now this is where HiggsField has a big advantage for some people. Cinema Studio gives you more overall control over the production. Before you create any video, you spend more time preparing the project, building your characters, locations, props, visual direction and the world of the film. Then you can use the AI director to help develop the scenes, shots and prompts and the overall direction. That extra preparation makes it easier to create a more controlled, consistent final film. And HiggsField also has its own models inside Cinema Studio that work together with the AI director. Those can produce great results, but they are extremely expensive, even compared with something like Seedance 2.5. ImagineArt Film Studio takes a much more direct approach. When you start a new project in Film Studio, you pick whether you are making a film or a drama. Drama is the more story-driven short-form format, the serialized vertical style that does well on TikTok and Reels. There you create your scenes, images, organize them on a timeline, generate the video, then edit, regenerate, add audio or extend it. Now of course you can still add your character sheets, you can add your product references, anything you need to include, it's still possible in Film Studio. And therefore I honestly think that both platforms can make videos that look just as good. The difference is that HiggsField makes it easier to get that highly controlled result, but it asks for much more preparation, time and credits upfront. For example, HiggsField also makes its own series and shows with their AI tools, and you can see how many credits they use for that. With one episode I noticed that they used $36,000 in credits, which was for a 1-hour movie I think. So again, insanely expensive. With ImagineArt you can probably get around 80% of the result in around 30% of the time and cost. And of course you can make projects for much less than the amount I just named. I think they just did a lot of regenerations in that case. So if you are making a serious film project and you want maximum control over every part of the production, then HiggsField is the stronger tool. But if you're a beginner working with a tighter budget, or you simply want to produce high quality cinematic content faster, then ImagineArt Film Studio is the more practical choice. Now at first glance, HiggsField's credit costs appear dramatically lower than ImagineArt's. For example, generating the same image with GPT Image 2 cost 12 credits on HiggsField versus 297 credits on ImagineArt. And a comparable video may cost 96 credits versus 1957 credits. However, this is because the two platforms price their credits very differently. On HiggsField, if you calculate it, credits cost between 3 and 7 cents. Well, on ImagineArt it's around 0.15 5 to 0.37 cents each, so roughly 20 times cheaper per credit, and that is depending on the plan you are on. If you pay annually on the most expensive plan, per credit it's going to be a lot cheaper compared to paying monthly on the cheapest plan. So once credit usage is converted into real money, the gap narrows considerably. In many cases, equivalent generations cost almost the same, and some workflows are even cheaper on ImagineArt despite requiring far more credits. So ultimately, credit counts alone are not a meaningful way to compare pricing. The effective cost per generation provides a much more accurate comparison, and this matters even more with Cinema Studio. Cinema Studio can produce better, ultra-realistic filmmaking results, but it can also become much more expensive when you are generating multiple shots, revisions, and sequences for a longer project. So who should pick each platform? I would choose HiggsField if you are focused on filmmaking. If you think in camera movements, shots, cinematic sequences, and visual direction, then HiggsField Cinema Studio is a serious reason to use it. It is the better specialist platform for someone who wants AI to work more like a filmmaking toolkit, and who is comfortable spending more credits to get the strongest result. But I would choose ImagineArt if you want to make almost anything with AI, from ads, product content, social media videos, marketing visuals, image generation, character-based content, storytelling, and cinematic projects that do not require filmmaking to be your entire workflow. It is also the better choice, in my opinion, for beginners. The interface is easier to navigate, the creative workflow is more approachable, and the reference system makes it much easier to get consistent results without becoming an advanced prompt engineer. That is why I think ImagineArt will be the better choice for most creators. Now, if you sign up to ImagineArt using the link down in the description and use my code, you will get a 10% discount, and I'll leave both of those down in the description. So that concludes this comparison of ImagineArt versus HiggsField. If this comparison helped you make a decision, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to my channel. With that being said, I will see you in the next video.